Okay, so first things first, you have to make a environment deck and a dungeon deck. Up top here is all the cards that are NPCs that I'm going to be using for my dungeon deck, and down here are all the cards I'm going to be using for my environment card deck. All of these cards are in one set of Hero's Tale, except Demonic Grove. That one is a special event one. Whenever you go to a Hero's Tale event while the Corrupted Forest is the current set, you will get one of these promo cards, the Demonic Grove. So after this, after I've decided what I want for my dungeon deck to put in, you can put in anything you like. If you want, you could put in more bad guys or however you want to structure it. But normally, if you have one player, you're going to want 20 NPCs at least. So one player equals 20 NPCs, and make sure you put plenty of low-level creatures in there for you to start off to kill. If you put in all high-level creatures like these, it won't bode well for you. So just increase the difficulty of the dungeon itself. You need these guys to have a solid foundation of your low levels to give yourself and your group more gold and income. Same goes for this. When you're making your environment deck, if you want, you can get rid of some of the small villages and put in more of whatever you like. But you want to have these buffers to help you out as you're traveling through. Because when we're done assembling the dungeon deck and the environment deck, we're going to randomly shuffle these creatures up, and that's what we're going to be facing. So you definitely want your healthy dose of low-level NPCs as well as low-level environment cards to help move things along, especially during the early game. So now that we have all these set up, we're going to take them and shuffle them up. And then I'll get right back to you and show you how we're going to lay out the battlefield. Okay, so I've shuffled up the NPCs into the dungeon deck, and then I have also shuffled up the environment cards into the environment deck. I have no idea what the order of the NPCs are, and hopefully they come out really well. You can sometimes get higher level monsters coming out at first, and let's just hope our character is fast enough to get away from those if that's what we encounter. But here's my hero setup. I chose human for that willpower bonus that can be really helpful. +2 to an action roll once per encounter. That can either help us escape if we absolutely need to, or deliver that final shot that we kind of need to win that fight. So human, ethereal staff, and health potion. Health potion is always great just to get those heals when you need to. You can always decide whether or not you want to do an antidote or a health potion, but I think health potion is a little bit better just because it just heals overall damage, and hopefully we'll run into an environment card that can give us and heal our poisons like Town or something. Up top we have 2 ability cards, Fireball and Shrink. Shrink is going to be great for dealing with the level 5 creatures that we're going to come across, and Fireball is going to be extremely helpful because we're going to be going that caster range, and if anything comes out that's a Cursed Dream Sprite or a Ash Fly, anything that's flying, we'll be able to peg them down with a Fireball. So this is the basic setup we have. Down here I'm using two 10-sided dice for keeping track of my health. And over here I have a couple more 10-sided dice to keep track of the NPC's health. So there's that. And without further ado, we can start the game. One last thing, role-playing reference cards. You don't do any role-playing in this because you don't have a game master that you're going to be role-playing with. So we don't use any skills for the role-playing reference cards. Everything you're rolling against is just a base 10 or a base whatever the card says. So for example, if I'm trying to tame a Goro, I will have to roll a 20 to capture that Goro as a tamed creature. Or if I'm trying to move out of the Corrupted Forest, I'll have to roll naturally a 10 to get out of the Corrupted Forest. So there's that. You can still use the role-playing reference card though if you want to role-play, if you have other players at the table, but for a solo match, it really is useless. But other than that, let's get this battle started. So I'll take 2. Every single time we move into an environment, we're going to grab 1 from the environment deck, 1 card from the environment deck, which is this one, and 2 cards from the NPC or the dungeon deck. And we will flip them to see what we get for the first. And a Swarm Commander, oh no. Swarm Commander and a Cave Lurker, a horrible combination. And a Pitfall, wow, that is a brutal first entry into the world. Wow, yeah, that's hurt. So we'll take the 3 damage from entering Pitfall, and that's gonna bring us down to 17. So I'll keep that track up here. And yeah, we're gonna do reflexes rolls to now see who goes first. And let's pretend that this whole battle was resolved, and I would probably retreat in this scenario. But let's just say for explanation circumstances, the Swarm Commander and the Cave Lurker die, which would never have happened. They would die and they'd go off to the dead pile. Or we can call it the graveyard or whatever you like. And once those cards die, they stay in the graveyard, and your objective is to whittle down this entire deck until you've killed all the monsters, or at least killed the highest level creatures in the dungeon deck. And then you can claim victory over the dungeon deck itself. For this card, if we were to moving into the next environment, or we're resting or whatnot, we take this card and we move it to the bottom. And it'll stay face up for later as we're traveling through and we come across it again. That Pitfall has already been activated, and that doesn't have to hurt us again. Or some people can put it face down and put it in the environment deck, but that's all personal preference. Okay, so now that we've talked about the layout and all the different places we're going to have the cards, let's talk about the battle itself. And we're going to move on to another battle, hopefully not running into another Swarm Commander or something really high level. You can always thin out the deck. I always recommend that maybe putting in 1 Swarm Commander and 1 Blightshade, and that helps thin the deck out so you don't run into them as often as you would. So we ran into an Ashfly, so 2 Ashflies, and we're in the Toxic Swamp. Okay, so what I want to explain about this is that if you're playing with no Game Master, who's to say who attacks first or what they're attacking with and who they're going to attack. If you have multiple players, you would all roll 20-sided dice, and whoever rolls the lowest number is going to be selected as the attack target from non-sentient NPCs. And they'll remain the attack target from those non-sentient NPCs through the remainder of the fight, unless there's aggro that swishes them to attack another player through take cover or challenge that forces them to attack another player. Now, sentient individuals will always attack the person with the lowest amount of health. So the person with the lowest amount of health, they're going to go after, they're going to attack them with a vengeance. Now, non-sentients aren't smart enough, so they won't figure out to go after the people who are the weaker individuals and pick them off first. So that's a little bit of a rundown on how you will attack with the different NPCs. Now, you can choose, if you have multiple abilities, but these guys only have Acid Spit, if you have to choose between, you can roll to decide which ability they use, or you could just say they use Acid Spit, or the best ability you feel at the time would be for the NPC card on their turn. So, other than that, the battle runs the same as any other combat encounter. The NPCs would roll first. Wow, one of them crit, and they would most likely go first for their attacks. Then I would roll for my human. He rolls a 10, not beating a 20. So that would be the reflexes. So they go first, and then we go back and forth and we fight. And hopefully, eventually, I would kill these things and they would go off the pile, and then we do the next, and this would go at the bottom. So this concludes my brief rundown on how to play without a game master. If you guys have any questions, feel free to post it up on the forums. Other than that, hope you guys have a blast.